Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into the 2008 Companies Act. Now, if you're a director of a South African company, listen up, because this legislation didn't just tweak the rules, it completely tore up the old playbook and wrote a new one. Let's break down what you absolutely have to know. So let's kick things off with a pretty serious question. Is your company's rulebook dangerously out of date? And I use the word dangerously on purpose, because running your business on old rules isn't just a bad habit. It can expose you and your company to some pretty massive risks you might not even see coming. You see, the shift from the old 1973 Act to the new 2008 Act wasn't just a minor update. It was a complete change in philosophy. We moved away from a super rigid, do this, don't do that system to one that's way more flexible and modern. But, and this is a huge but, it put an enormous new focus on the responsibility and the accountability of directors. So, what does this new rulebook actually mean for you day to day? Well, think of it less like a legal update and more like you're playing a whole new game. The rules for how you run your business, the decisions you're allowed to make, and most importantly, the risks you personally face have all changed. Okay, so at the absolute heart of this new system is one single crucial document. You can think of it as your company's constitution or its DNA. Under the 2008 Act, it's called the Memorandum of Incorporation, or as you'll hear it called, the MOI. The MOI is now the single most important document governing your company. It basically took the old, complicated system of having a separate memorandum and articles of association and rolled them into one powerful rulebook. If you don't understand what's in your MOI, you don't really know the rules you're playing by. Now this is a massive change in thinking. Under the old rules, directors had very limited power by default. You had to use company documents to give them more authority. The new act completely flips the script. It says, okay, directors, you have broad powers to run the company, which means the main job of the MOI is now to put limits and guardrails on those powers. And this is where things can get a little scary. If your company existed before 2011 and you've never updated your founding documents, you're almost certainly working with an outdated MOI. That could mean you're wasting money on things like mandatory audits you don't even need anymore. Or worse, you could have a ticking time bomb in your document, like a clause that restricts shares but not other securities, which could cause huge legal headaches down the road. All right, the new act also thankfully simplified the different kinds of companies you can set up. Let's do a quick run-through of the main categories so you can see exactly where your business fits in the picture. And just so you know, the information we're looking at here isn't just our opinion. It comes directly from guidance provided by the experts over at the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants, or SAICA. So everything basically gets sorted into two main buckets. You've got your profit companies, which, as the name suggests, are there to make money. And then you have nonprofit companies, or NPCs. For most of us, especially in the small and medium business world, you're going to be dealing with a private company, which has that familiar PYT Ltd at the end of its name. Okay, let's get to what is probably the single biggest shift in the entire act. And that is the incredible weight of responsibility and personal liability that now sits squarely on the shoulders of every single director. The buck really does stop with you. You see, the law isn't vague about this anymore. The act now codifies what's expected of you. That's a fancy way of saying it's written down in black and white exactly what your duties of care, skill, and diligence are. And trust me, the bar has been set very, very high. So here's where the rubber really meets the road. For the most part, the act got rid of criminal penalties, so you're probably not going to jail for a compliance mistake. But they replaced it with something that might feel even worse: personal civil liability. That means anyone, a shareholder, a creditor, even an employee who loses money because you didn't follow the act, can sue you personally to get their money back. Now, with all that new personal risk, the act didn't just leave directors hanging. It gave them a critical tool, a kind of mandatory financial health check that you have to perform before your company makes almost any significant financial decision. So imagine you're in the boardroom. You're thinking about paying out a big dividend, or maybe buying back some company shares, or even giving a loan to another company. For any of those things, the law says you have to hit pause and first ask one crucial question: have we passed the test? And that test is the solvency and liquidity test. The really important thing to get here is that it's a forward-looking test. It forces you to look at the health of the company after you've paid the dividend or made the loan. It's designed to stop reckless decisions before they happen.
It's got two parts, and you have to pass both of them. No exceptions. Think of it this way.
The solvency test is your big picture balance sheet check. Do your assets outweigh your liabilities? And the liquidity test is all about cash flow. Looking 12 months into the future, will you still be able to pay your bills on time? And this isn't some quick back-of-a-napkin calculation. It's a formal process. You've got to gather all your financial info, make sure you're using fair and reasonable values, which can get tricky, and then the board has to formally evaluate the results and, crucially, document that they did the test and that the company passed. You can't afford to skip this.
Okay, I know, we have covered a ton of ground here. So if you only take a few things away from this whole explainer, please make it these key points.
So here's the bottom line. The 2008 Act gives you a lot more freedom and flexibility, but it demands serious accountability in return. Your MOI is your company's DNA. If it's old, you need to review it, like yesterday. That solvency and liquidity test, it's your non-negotiable safety check. And never, ever forget, getting any of this wrong can hit you right where it hurts the most, your own personal bank account.
So, I'll leave you with this final question. Every director needs to ask it. Is your company's core document, your MOI, building a fortress to protect you and your business? Or is it an old, forgotten relic that's silently digging a hole of liability you won't see until you're already falling in? Thanks so much for joining us.